Yo, have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome, everyone, to the L7C Podcast Wrestling Edition. Today, we are going to be talking about the rise and fall of WWE NXT in our humble opinions. We have the wrestling expert, Jacob Mason, with us. How are you doing today, sir?
Dude, I'm good, buddy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Thank you. And then we have the captain with us, Byron Mitchell, with us today as well. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm always great when I get to come on and talk some special wrestling.
That is good. That is good to hear. So, yeah, we're just going to be talking about NXT. We will talk about some stuff that has happened in the past couple of weeks, but most of the focus will be on NXT. When it was at its height, where it's at now, things that have changed, and just things that we just don't like. So I guess, shoot, Jacob, where do you want to begin?
Fuck. I don't know. So we're still are diehard fans of NXT. What's everyone's like? I don't know. How did everyone get into NXT? What made you guys go like, hey, this NXT looks cool. What is this shit? And start checking it out.
That's actually a really good question, man. For me, my vivid memories of it, I didn't really watch it when like Big E and like Roman and like Seth were there and that like Paige and Emma. My vivid memories is probably the very first match was Charlotte versus Natalya on NXT, with both their respective Hall of Fame family members on the side. And I was like, all right, this stuff's pretty cool. It's a different vibe. It's only an hour. It's on the network. And then from watching that and watching these women's matches, and I'm like, oh, these women are like really good. And then it just came to a head for me at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, Barclays Center, where Sasha and Bayley, their first match, had the greatest women's wrestling match of all time. And from there, I was just like, all right, I'm really hooked on this stuff.
For me, it was the first TakeOver special that I watched, which was NXT Rival back on February 11th of 2015. I just went in there without any expectations because I saw like a bunch of like wrestling Twitter, promote the brand like, oh, NXT is so good. They've got so much fresh talent and all this and all that. So I just wanted to go in there and just check it out, and basically I've been hooked ever since. The matches that I really remember from that TakeOver were the 4 horsewomen battling out for the women's title, and then Sasha actually winning the title that day. And then the other highlight was Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn fighting for the NXT title, and then Kevin Owens winning by TKO.
Yeah, I'd say some of my first memories of NXT was actually from WWE.com back when they had power rankings, and they were back when they were a big deal.
Yeah.
Back in the day, like they came out the power rankings every week, and you're like, oh shit, who's up, who's down, And I'll never forget seeing Paige was the number one power ranking, and I was like, shit, I was like, look at this. Like they're coming out with this new brand and they're putting this person like above everyone else right now. I remember that. I was just like, okay, like, that's awesome. They had, Paige was younger. She was like, she's our age.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, shit. All right, let's check this out. Like something else that I randomly unlocked a memory thinking about. There used to be a wrestler on NXT called Bull James, who was just some big country dude, whatever. But I remember on WWE.com, they had like a massive article about him. Like he was just coming in and they're put right up front, like you couldn't miss it. It's one of the first things you've seen. Was this giant article about him. I remember reading about this. I was like, dude, this looks fucking cool. Like, I want to see this guy. And NXT was just, it was different. It was just different compared to what everything else was happening at the time.
Yeah, I guess we have to, since we are astute wrestling podcast, we will have to break it down even more. Because like the initial NXT, which I had in like my notes, like way back before 2012, was like where the Nexus came from. Like the original concept where if everyone remembers Nexus debut, they freaking destroyed Cena, the ring, like all of that. And obviously people came out of Nexus, some guys, Daniel Bryan, shout out to CM Punk calling this guy steroid guy, aka Ryback, Tonga, Tarver, Heat, Gabriel, Darren Young, Wade. They came. And then it went stale, and Lord and behold, the person who changed everything was Triple H. I remember Triple H's documentary, that Kingdom Come, that I watched on the network. And he talked about, I was like, hey, let me like start working with this developmental territory so we can have like future stars here. And like Byron, what you just talked about, NXT Arrival 2014, that was the first pay-per-view done by NXT. And then they found gold, man. Because from 2014 to like 19, NXT was the best brand in WWE. And I don't think it was close.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And like Triple H running it, he was hiring great training staff. Sarah DeRay is the woman's person, I believe, who's been training like all the women, who she's like the best in the business. And then Triple H too is like weird because you think of like Triple H, Golden Shovel, all of that. But he was the guy out there getting like the biggest names back then, free agents. He got Sammy to come. He got Kevin. He got Finn. He got Samoa Joe. He got Cole. Like any big star signed was by him. And Jacob, I think we were just talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Like back in the day at a takeover, you'd be looking around to see who they're going to show in the crowd as like the next big signing. Like, what the hell is he?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but something else that like, I just remember being like, holy shit, like NXT, this is a big thing now, was when they signed the big three, when they signed Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, and Kenta, like basically all in like 3 weeks. And then they just announced it. So like, I think I still have the pictures saved somewhere of like Triple H with those three. And I'm just like, dude, this is about to blow up. And it did.
Yeah. I think it was, didn't they post like an article when they signed Kenta, like, oh, WWE just signed the biggest Japanese star or something like that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
And then they just topped that Japanese-wise by signing, a guy named Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah.
Just a couple years later.
They came a long way from Yoshitatsu.
Man, that's a name I haven't heard in a minute.
So what did you guys like? We're talking about the 2014-19 era. Like, what did you guys like about it, about NXT?
Honestly, I mean, I know it's been said a million times, but NXT was the anti-WWE show. It really was. It was the modern day ECW, the cult following and the best wrestling and the best promos and the best everything. I mean, That's the first thing that comes to mind. It was the original anti-WWE thing.
Byron?
Yeah, for me, like all the takeovers were like from 2014 and 2019 were like all super exciting. Like all 5 matches were great. Like sometimes they would be better than like the Sunday pay-per-views, like the WrestleManias or the SummerSlams. And it was just exciting to have a full weekend of wrestling, but like start off with this big high of NXT. It was great.
I think for me, one of the biggest things was like Jacob to play on the cult following. Back in the day, like from those times, you could only watch it on the WWE network.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it was only an hour long. And with it being an hour long, it showed that anything in that hour was super important. They didn't waste time. There wasn't stupid commercials. There weren't stupid, even though I like him, Renegal trying to be a simp to Dana Brooks skits. Like there was none of that on like prime 1 hour, 8 p.m. Wednesday in front of your computer, WWE network watching. That's one of the favorite things I like the most. It was only an hour. Everything's important. You knock it out. So it's only, and then it's like 9 o'clock. So then you could do what we're doing, get in a group text and just instantly start talking about it. So
yeah.
And you couldn't miss it.
Mm-mm.
What they did in an hour, they did better than what Raw did in 3 hours, what SmackDown did in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And something else that was always so, which I loved, it brought back Attitude Era vibes for me. Even if someone wasn't in like a championship like Chase or something like that, they all had storylines, and those storylines meant something.
Mm-hmm.
It was always gold. I mean, I think it always beat out the Sunday pay-per-views, the main card pay-per-views.
Oh, for sure.
From top to bottom, wrestling wise, I don't disagree with Jacob, but now it's a lot to. I don't think the NXT takeover before SummerSlam 16 was it 16? I don't think any match on that card had a better match than Cena versus Styles.
I'm trying to think what takeover was that.
I was only saying that one because Cena versus Styles won match of the year for PW on Wrestling Observers.
So, all right. So they got beat out by one match one time, and like
that's the only. That's crazy. That's the only like match I could think of that was better than anything of a takeover of that time. But I'd have to look at that takeover. I was just basing it off of that.
Something else you just kind of talked about it. AJ Styles, because everyone coming in was going into NXT.
Mm-hmm.
If you somehow jumped NXT, you were big shit.
Yes, he was.
Styles, the Good Brothers. I'm trying because there was only a couple that actually did that.
Only a couple, and AJ, we obviously know what he's accomplished WWE. And there's some people who should have been there longer instead of only 6 months, like Nia Jax.
Well,
they should have been there longer.
So I looked it up. So the takeover before that SummerSlam was Takeover Brooklyn 2.
Mm-hmm.
And on that card, we had Austin Aries defeated No Way Jose. Ember Moon defeated Billie Kay. Bobby Roode defeated Andrade. The Revival defeated DIY. Asuka defeated Bayley. And then Shinsuke defeated Samoa Joe.
So that was Bayley's last match there because she didn't lose. She passed out. If I'm remembering, was that Bobby Roode's debut? Where he
I believe
came
that
down?
was Bobby Roode's debut.
Oh, that entrance was wild, man. Like
it's the most glorious entrance song of all time.
Yes.
It really was. So I guess now what were your favorite, like, I know Byron talked about some and I talked about like when the women on. What was your favorite moments from like the 2014-19 NXT? I know we talked about like the special people they signed in some matches, but what other were some of your favorite moments?
Man, I got a lot.
Oh, well.
I mean, still probably in my top 3 matches of all times was the debut of Shinsuke versus Sami Zayn.
Because WrestleMania 32 weekend.
Yeah, that was wild. That was awesome. I mean, like I said, that's still top 3, but honestly, during that whole time, probably my favorite thing was literally watching Johnny Gargano going through the almost getting released, getting thrown in this random ass tag team they end up calling DIY, watching them absolutely just kill it in the tag team division, and then watching what was the greatest rival in NXT, in my opinion, just to watch him chase the title. Those have got to be, I mean, there's like a million things within that Johnny storyline, but so that's going to count for most of my stuff. But those 2 things specifically were just probably my favorite things.
Byron?
Some of my favorite things come from like wrestling matches. So these are like not in any order, but like these are like the first I thought of when I looked at this question earlier. So the first one is Tommaso Ciampa hitting Adam Cole with an air raid slam off the top of the War Game cell through 2 tables. The other one was Adam Cole kicking Ricochet in the face after he backflipped off the ropes, which was insane. And then and then this other one is the double submission finisher when DIY finally won the tag titles.
Those are damn good memory. Shoot, I was thinking that because you just brought up his name, Byron, he was probably Triple H's last Omega. I mean, he got all 4 of them, the whole Undisputed Era.
Yeah.
And obviously we saw what they did. They ran NXT
for 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 years.
They ran it until it became this new NXT. Adam Cole was like when they had one of my favorites, when they had all the gold. Like that was crazy. So like a recent, and then I'll go backwards. A recent one of my favorite moments was when Keith Lee was the one who beat Adam Cole when he was holding up both titles, because that was a big moment for Keith. Obviously, Keith and Dijakovic's matches were a freaking plus. Anytime those 2 went at it, like the last of like the new of that 2019 era NXT. And like, I'm trying to remember, there was a tag team match when it was American Alpha, and I don't remember who they were going against, but that match was absolutely freaking insane.
I think it was a Revival.
It was Revival. Yeah. Yes, that match.
They were running the tag team division for a while.
Like that match was wild. I loved how people could come. Like another thing, like from the Mae Young Classic, obviously, like Rhea Ripley, Shayna Baszler, like Io Shirai coming from there, then coming to NXT, Kairi Sane, like all those women from like those things coming there. And it was a place of which I will talk about more in the second part, a place of opportunities to like prove yourself again. We were just talking about him on Monday, Byron, how Drew McIntyre, he was a chosen one in like 2007, and whenever got his ass fired, went around the world, trained, came back in NXT, great champ, and then obviously he won the Royal Rumble and all that jazz. But
yeah,
the vibe there, as Jacob said, was just completely different. And I can go on. And I guess one of the biggest things for me is that brand produced the best women wrestlers on the planet.
Hands down.
So one of
women.
So yeah, because that was my thing. When those 4 left, I thought they were never going to have women again. But then you had this other woman come in named Asuka. And you had this another woman come in named Ember Moon. And even to a lesser degree, not the same like wrestling and stuff, but you had these other women come in like the Iconics. Then you had Bianca, Rhea, Kairi, Io. Like they just kept pumping these top tier women through. And I was like, wow.
Let's not forget Alexa Bliss, because like
Alexa Bliss, yeah.
Like on NXT,
Carmella.
Like on NXT, like they never really featured like Alexa Bliss or Carmella like that. But like once they got to the main roster, they just propelled them to stardom.
Shit, let's talk about Nikki ASH now, but let's talk about Nikki Cross and how she went from basically being lower mid card. She had that match with Ember Moon or Asuka, where they just beat the shit out of each other. And they just let Nikki show her, I don't know, aggressive dominant side, and she just went crazy, which was freaking awesome. But something else none of us talked about. Let's talk about how good that crowd was.
Yes,
the full sale
that was
crowd.
The extra player
full sale crowd.
Full sale.
That crowd literally made that show. The crowd was half of the good stuff. I mean, a little controversial person I'm going to talk about here, but you talk about Velveteen Dream, him and Aleister Black in the crowd. No one really liked Velveteen Dream, but by the end of that match, everyone's chanting, "Say his name, say his name." And then when Aleister Black finally said his name, that crowd went freaking nuts. That was awesome. Or another controversial person we'll talk about here, Enzo Amore and Big Cass.
Yep.
Talk about a team that never got the NXT titles, but every time they came out, absolute massive pop.
Yeah, I agree. That the Full Sail crowd was amazing. I think because it was like a small, intimate setting, reminds you of like those independent crowds where like everyone just loves everyone. Everyone's just like happy there just to watch wrestling. And then you have these great moments like Jacob said, that NXT Velveteen versus Aleister match. That was what goes back to your main point, another point you made, that some of those storylines were so important that without the NXT championship, like, or any championship involved, like that storyline was great between Velveteen and Aleister Black.
Now that crowd was something crazy. And it's the fact that outside of like their pay-per-views, you're getting almost the same people. So you built a real connection with those crowds. Shoot, I remember during that Bayley Sasha war, and Bayley obviously had that fan who was the Omega Bayley fan that everyone knew was Izzy.
Yep.
So then anytime like Sasha would be like, "Oh, is this your favorite person getting beat up?" And then like slam Bayley's, like it was wild seeing that, like then seeing her, like the emotion of her crying when Sasha just beating the hell out of Bayley, like making those connections were crazy. But yeah, what other moments like did you guys like from the 14 to 19 NXT era? I know there's a lot.
There really are.
I mean, Asuka going undefeated and going out like that was.
Oh yeah, how she just went out on top. No one can defeat me, so I'm just going to give you guys this title back and go on a Raw. That was a great moment.
All right, here, I'll ask this. Asuka's last match in NXT was against Ember Moon, which was an absolute barn burner of a killer match. Should have Asuka lost or kept her streak going?
This is because we're talking about it now and like we already know what happens after. But it's like when Asuka left undefeated, she came in undefeated to Raw and like won like she was undefeated all the way until WrestleMania 34 or 33, where she lost to Charlotte. Yeah, because she lost to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Which that was just like, she was super unstoppable. She won like they were booking her right. Like that's the thing. And then she loses. Obviously, she recovers. She becomes a multiple time champion, all that stuff. But the fact that her streak ended on Charlotte, I don't think that's now with hindsight. I'm like, I'd rather have her just ended it with Ember Moon and then still do the same stuff instead of giving that accolade to Charlotte. But that's with hindsight now.
I mean, during the time I wanted Ember Moon to win so bad.
Because she was chasing.
Yeah, I wanted her to win that NXT championship off of Asuka so bad. But she eventually won it after Asuka left. But at that moment, but hindsight, I mean, I guess it's fine, hindsight-wise. But during the time, I definitely wanted Ember to win.
I don't know, man. I just love this. Like someone's undefeated. It's like, who's gonna finally do it? It's like, well, now we're talking about current time. It shouldn't have been Charlotte. It should have been like an up and comer who beat Asuka.
Right, like Ember Moon.
Like
she
Ember Moon, yeah.
Up and comer.
Yeah. Like it should have been her instead of freaking Charlotte.
Right.
100%.
Jacob, did you want her to win or lose, or did you not care at the time? Or
honestly, it was one of those things because it was done so well. Either way, at that moment in time, I was good with it either way.
Mm-hmm.
If Asuka won, that's great storytelling. If Ember wins, that's great storytelling. I think in the middle of that match, I was like, screw it, let's go Ember. But at the end of it, I was like, this was still really good. This is how wrestling should be.
And obviously, like other things, like Finn Balor's first title run in NXT. I think one of the biggest we are here NXT moments before Finn was Kevin Owens becoming champ and then showing up to Raw, powerbombing US champ John Cena, stepping on the US title, and then holding the NXT title high. And then obviously at Elimination Chamber, Kevin versus John, they start their trilogy, and no one, I don't care what anyone says, no one expected Kevin Owens to win the match clean, no BS, because he was a heel at the time. He won that match clean, and everyone's just like, oh my gosh. Like, if they had the NXT champ, even though he was the US champ, we all know he was the face of the company, beat the face of the company clean in his first WWE main roster match. NXT's the real deal. Then obviously they had their trilogy. I had the privilege of seeing the Money in the Bank match, which is probably the best match I've seen in my life in person. So that was one of the moments I was just like, oh my gosh. NXT's
Something
here.
else that was really cool. You talked about him, Finn Balor. Man, it was an absolute spectacle. Every takeover when he was champion and he came out as a demon, because every demon had a different theme. Like when they were in the UK and he came out as
Jack the Ripper, I think. Jack
the Ripper, yeah. Or when they were in Dallas, Texas, he came out Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That was so badass. It was such good writing, such good times.
Dude, he was a monster, man. And you talk about big signing too. Then right after that, you get Samoa Joe. Like, that's a name where you thought like an AJ could have just skipped NXT and went to the main roster. He's like, at that point, I was like, why would I want to go to the main roster? This is the hottest wrestling here.
That's true. Can you imagine if AJ Styles went to NXT during that period? Oh my God, the matches he could have put on. That was
2016. So that means they were all, that would have been wild. That would have been crazy. Then obviously, thanks to Crown Jewel and everyone had to get stuck there, we had one of the best NXT moments of all time where NXT invaded.
Yep.
That was the best Survivor Series I've seen in a long time, when NXT was involved and they just beat the hell out of WWE in every event but one, because Roman had to win that one.
Of course.
Of course.
That was the only match SmackDown or Raw won, because Roman was there.
And that was the last good Survivor Series pay-per-view that's happened in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. NXT, the NXT men should have won. I don't care that it was Roman.
They would have clean swept. Shoot, it led to one of my favorite Raws with Seth Rollins called everyone out. It's like, y'all suck.
That's true.
He's like, Charlotte, you're supposed to be the queen. You're out here losing. Like, that was great.
Monday Night Messiah. Another great Seth moment. Speaking of NXT, when he had that feud with Triple H and then hijack.
That was NXT.
Yep, that was a moment.
He said, "All right, well, if you won't show up, I'm just gonna come to your house." And him doing that, I'll never forget. He's like, "Man, WWE made Seth Rollins so over in 5 minutes that Roman Reigns can't get at that point in time." I was just like, Jesus, man.
It was facts.
In as much as I hate it, I hate to say it, and I hated the ending outcome. But how cool was it when Charlotte actually challenged Rhea Ripley for the NXT title after she won the Rumble?
That was very cool, because again, it showed that NXT was the real deal. that you're going for their champion. Obviously, that was terrible, the ending, because she has not really recovered since. But that was a great moment.
And it was what was funny was us as the fans, as the hardcore fans, knew NXT was the third brand, but was the best brand. But meanwhile, you had Vince and the main roster treating NXT like it was nothing.
Yep.
Which was still like the biggest mind screwness, trying to be PG here, possible. I mean, we still bitch about it all the time.
I honestly think, because especially at that point in time, like 16, 17-ish, because that's when he was still full-time. You take out Cena and Styles at that point, where they're at the height of their abilities. I mean, NXT had a better male roster than WWE. I don't think NXT has not had a better overall male roster than WWE until now, which is because the men's roster isn't good in WWE, and most of them are from NXT. But like that time, 14 to 19, like the whole thing, I think they've obviously had a better men's roster.
I would agree with you there.
Like you had Sammy, Kevin, Finn, like all those people. Then you rotate Andrade, freaking Aleister Black, Samoa Joe, Nakamura, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Roode, like
Lars Sullivan.
Okay. Then obviously Johnny Gargano, and then I'm not even gonna be thinking it's crazy. The best heel in the past 10 years, Tommaso Ciampa. When he was champ, Goldie, best heel of the past decade, easy.
Hands down, not even close.
Oh yeah, that moment. I think it was NXT Takeover. I want to say it was New Orleans, but I could be wrong. When he literally came out to no music and everyone is screaming, "Fuck you, Ciampa!" Best heel moment ever.
He should have never got music. He literally should have never got music. He was so nuclear hot. It didn't matter what he did. Everyone legit hated this guy. And it was the best.
He was ripping grandma's signs, calling them the C word. Like this guy was on a whole other. I'm like, hold on now, calm down.
Because Johnny Gargano was so beloved at that time.
God,
so you had like the greatest babyface during those years versus the greatest heel during those years, and it just was instant. Just those matches that they put on were amazing.
So who do you think? I mean, because you talked about the greatest like baby faces, like especially NXT, obviously Johnny, but then people forget like 2014-15 OG Sami Zayn, like he was NXT's John Cena.
Like, he was like when he beat another person who was top tier, Neville. Like when he finally got the title, it was just like a surreal moment. And then Kevin Owens literally Brock Lesnar him, beat his ass, and then took the title. So it's like there were some fantastic baby. Like you, as Jacob, I know he had a pet peeve about this sometimes with who's the face, who's the heel. You knew who they were in NXT.
Yeah, they played their parts extremely well.
Yeah. Man, any other moments that we want to talk about before we get to downfall? And
man, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I know one of my favorite live like house shows I ever seen was an NXT house show. Dude, it was awesome because they had. I remember the main event was Johnny versus Adam Cole versus Tommaso Ciampa. Dude, that was funny enough. That was the second, in my opinion, the second best match of the night. The best match they had Ricochet versus Tyler Breeze.
Tyler Breeze, fantastic.
They brought them down. They tore the absolute house down. Those two. I was like, dude, why are these guys not like top of the line, like on the main roster right now? I was amazed because I was like, oh, Tyler Breeze, whatever. But like watching that dude wrestle, like full blown in a house show, I was like, oh shit, he got moved something fierce right now.
And then obviously also when you won your championship, the signature Triple H point and post, or like when you were a big signee, he did the point and post. Like that was something always exciting too. But man, you're just naming these names who get no play in the main roster now or aren't even there.
Yeah. Tyler Breeze and Fandango were an excellent tag team. Like they were so funny. Like the bits they did, the Fashion Police, Fashion Files, man. They should still be here.
They should. And I remember when like there was one match, I don't know who he was against, where Cesaro came down and had a match at NXT.
Was it
Ilya
against
Dragunov?
Yep, Ilya Dragunov.
Are we going to NXT UK?
I mean, they had my boy Walter. He was real. He is real.
He was.
They have Byron. Now he's here now. They had Byron's boy Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne,
oh my God. Pete Dunne is so hard.
He was real too. They had Carly Rae, who every time I say her name now, which I think of the anniversary of now that Fox post that's over a year old about the dollar thing. And she was a smooth 4. I mean, she was running stuff there too. Like they expanded to UK. They were doing things there. Shoot, when Imperium invaded NXT America, and like they had their wars with the Undisputed, everyone else, because Walter couldn't be beat. Like
no, I think he was champ for like 700 days
until old boy beat him, which was the last like real great male NXT championship matches.
Yeah,
which I thought should have been match of the year because I was going freaking crazy.
Oh yeah, that match. Like I was over your house when we were watching it, and we're just like, okay, this has to be match of the year.
But now NXT UK, that was wild. I loved how they used to do specials. I liked when WWE did specials where they'd mix the main roster and NXT, like Beast in the East. That was one of my favorites where they did in Japan. And I think that's where Finn won the title off of Kevin.
Yep.
Yeah. That place, yeah.
Because they gave flowers to Finn and Kevin Owens. I remember Kevin Owens like took some flowers, like beat the shit out of them, like threw them out in the crowd.
Great heel moment.
Oh, so good.
I know what you do, man. But there's just and people like Damian Priest came from there, and it was just wild that so much talent came from there, and is now some of the main faces you see today. But they were so much better in NXT than they were now because it was more focused, in my opinion. Like WWE is just like, these stupid segments that I get it for like the little kids and all that and your sponsors, but NXT was so much more focused during their hour. They were so focused during their takeovers. And like Jacob said, you couldn't miss it. It was only an hour. So like you go to the bathroom, the show's over. Like
true.
But man, so what did you guys think was starting to become the fall of it? I think we all have pretty consensus times of when we thought.
I'm just going to say it because everyone's thinking it. For me, NXT took a downfall when Vince and Bruce Pritchard decided to produce the show. I even texted you guys. I was like, well, NXT was great while it lasted. They shouldn't have excommunicated Triple H because he lost one Wednesday Night War to AEW. I forgot what show he lost it to, but after that, Vince was like, well, I'm taking over. And not saying that NXT 2.0 is bad. It's just not as good as the Black and Gold brand was.
Jacob, you want to go before I go?
Yeah. In my opinion, when NXT went really downhill was when they decided to go live on Wednesday nights, because AEW gets announced. They get announced like, hey, like we're going to start doing shows on Wednesdays at this time. And then, of course, Vince McMahon being Vince McMahon pulled the most Vince McMahon thing ever and was like, well, fuck you. I'm going to Wednesdays and I'm going live. And did that 2 weeks before. Well, I believe it was 2 weeks before AEW went on the air.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Vince, I think, really started getting way more involved, because I want to crush these other people before they can even slightly get bigger in his mind. I don't think he realized the absolute momentum that was behind AEW at the time, and still is. So when that happened, I think you got more. I think you got more sponsors. I think you got more writers. You got way more hands in the cookie jar than what they had before, because it was a very limited staff. Who was the writers? Who was the main people? Who were the trainers in NXT? And then once all that dynamic started to change, I mean, it was, in my opinion, it was very obvious. You could see things going very downhill very quickly. And it wasn't the wrestlers' fault, because we know those wrestlers, and we just talked for I don't know how long about how good things were with all these wrestlers, only for all these other people to start screwing shit up.
Mm-hmm.
I felt bad for the wrestlers. Like, why? There's enough days in the week for enough wrestling to go around and everyone can get a piece of that pie. WWE is always going to have the biggest piece of that pie. Why they decided to go after this other company, I really don't know. They were on Tuesdays, if everyone remembers correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did that switch to Wednesdays. Like, why? You were on Wednesdays, you went to Tuesdays, then you went back to Wednesdays. Why? It doesn't make any sense. That was my first thought of like, this isn't great. This isn't good.
So mine is a combination of both your guys'. Obviously Vince's involvement, and then putting NXT live. I remember the first NXT live because Adam Cole came out, and then Finn Balor's music came out, and I was actually freaking hyped, because I was like, okay, they're going to do something that I have personally bitched about for like 3 years. Was like, look, if you don't have anything for these people on the main roster, let them go to NXT, reinvent themselves, or cause a spark in NXT. So when Finn went back, I was like, oh, we're going to be sending people like down to like, not even down, because it was the better wrestling show. Like, we're going to be sending people to NXT to show that this is a top like brand, because Vince wanted to compete with AEW, which that was just a bad decision, because with the momentum Jacob talked about, AEW is the new thing, still the new thing. They are all these wrestlers that people knew or wanted to see at a time they could actually be awake, because some of these guys were on TV on the other side of the planet. So it was just a bad business move. But I do think there was still good, like Adam Cole was still champ, like there was a Keith Lee stuff. There was still good stuff. Like when Triple H was still around. My two biggest things is when Triple H got that heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was just like, now, even though they didn't, this gives them their built-in excuse to fully take over. And then also the biggest from that to NXT 2.0 when they were announcing that. And even before seeing 2.0, just seeing those colors of like all rainbowish and all, I'm just like, no, this isn't not going to be it at all. So like Triple H going down and NXT 2.0 being announced, those were the two biggest things for me. And then seeing like the people, like obviously the major people were leaving NXT, going to the main roster or getting cut. So then it was just like this new era of NXT, and like someone like Mandy Rose, who she did exactly what I've been saying for years. Like I just said, she went down to NXT, was able to find her true character, and now she's having the hottest streak of her career. I wanted that for so many wrestlers instead of them getting cut, and they never did it. And then the Braun Breaker thing when he kicked the Gold X, that actually kind of pissed me off. I'm not going to lie, because that was like the last FU to like Triple H, just like a long time ago where Cody Rhodes hit like the throne at AEW with the sledgehammer to say to Triple H. Like this was Vince saying it, not even to just his own employee, to his own damn son-in-law. Like, sorry, thanks for the great 10 years, like doing all this NXT, getting me most of my roster now that I still cut. But now we're going to send you a farewell thing with Steiner's son kicking the gold NXT for the freaking Barney colored X. So those were my things of the downfall.
Something else that was the downfall, even before all of that, was seeing our favorite NXT wrestlers get called up to the main roster, because only a couple actually made it and did something up there because they constantly got screwed. I mean, I don't know how many times we said on.
Who'd you define as did something?
Finn Balor, Kevin Owens,
clearly number one. Yep.
The
women,
those
the
two
four
are the two
horsewomen.
biggest ones, I'd say. I mean, minus the 4 horsewomen and Asuka.
Yeah.
They might as well, man. They should have just made her the Fizz.
Yeah, she's on her the 4.5.
The 4.5. Like, god damn, or the 5th. Like, because we always say that on here. We're like the 4 horsewomen and Asuka. Might as well just make
the 5 horsewomen.
Like, make some shit up. Like, shit, there's 5. They're the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Like, damn.
I feel like they treated the NXT women call-ups better than they did the NXT.
Absolutely.
Because, like, you could add Alexa Bliss to that list because she's won multiple titles.
Carmella's done well for
Carmella
herself.
has won a couple titles, tag team championships.
She's the only one left from Enzo and Big Cass to this day.
That is true. Who else I was just thinking of? The Iconics. They came and won tag championships before they got fired. So, yeah, definitely they treated the NXT women way better than they treated the men.
I will be devil's advocate here. I feel like the NXT women, when they all got called up, had way less competition than the men did.
Yeah.
Coming up.
I think they came at a perfect time, because if you look at that day, which I know is actually going to be coming up too, because Jacob and I did we talked about it. It was like their 6-year anniversary of 3 of the 4 horsewomen coming. That's actually going to be coming up soon. So it'll be like 7 years, which when we do the math again to see how much those 4 have accomplished in 7 years is wild. But I'll never forget that Raw. Stephanie came out. Nikki Bella was Divas champ, because it was still Divas champ for like the record at that time. And they're like, yeah, we need to put some competition in the Divas division at the time before they officially called it the women's division. And here came Charlotte, Becky, Sasha. Each of them joined one of those factions. But then within that year, after the Charlotte beat Nikki for the title, and then from there, the made women's match in WrestleMania 32, which was the best match on that card, was Charlotte, Sasha, Becky for the new women's championship that Lita presented.
Yep.
So like they took over quick, because I mean, Nikki, no disrespect to her, I mean, she got better over time, but it wasn't like these women were coming in and Charlotte's champion.
That's a good point.
It was like Nikki Bella, which I guess you could say she was at the height of her powers because she was with like John Cena, but it was like Nikki, Paige was like still there, but about to be out. At that, top people were gone. AJ was gone. Caitlyn was gone. So the Jacobs thing, like, it was easier to insert them, but like you said, Byron, other people rose. Like Alexa Bliss. Like Alexa Bliss had more titles than Becky Lynch for the longest time until the man persona.
Yep.
Like she was out here killing it. So, I mean, you both are right. From the men's thing, I mean, I guess like the very first 2012 NXT stuff, like Seth is a top guy and like Big E and like Roman, but like,
yeah,
you've never seen, well, Drew coming back, then winning that title, I guess would be the last like big person. But Finn, he got shot up as soon as he came up. He won the Universal title.
True, but then he got injured.
He got injured same night.
Same night. And then hasn't tasted a title since.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, something else, this kind of just hit me. Do you remember like when they would do call-ups? And a lot, like I'd say 90% of the times, they would show like the vignettes for a while. I'd be like, hey, like the Wyatt family. I mean, they went for like 2-3 months showing all those vignettes for the Wyatt family. It's kind of like Vern or whatever the hell his name is.
Veer Mahan.
Yeah, they've been showing his vignettes for like 6 months. He's got the greatest gimmick in wrestling right now.
Ooh, side note, Riot Squad.
That's one.
Yeah.
From NXT. Yeah, just thinking now. I'm just thinking of all the women.
Let's be real. Riot Squad really kind of got shit on the main roster.
They did, but I was just thinking about them in like NXT. Like I'm just thinking of like all the women now.
Yeah.
They should have won tag titles.
Shayna Baszler was the baddest woman on the planet at NXT. Just like Ronda Rousey's friend didn't get to skip the main. Didn't get to skip, but she just was killing it over there. 2-time women's. And
then when she did get called up, she was a vampire.
Yeah,
true. That spot was bad, but when she first started, she was beating the hell out of everyone.
She literally defeated everyone in that elimination chamber match. Almost killed Liv Morgan.
She should have beat Becky. See, that was one where I was like, Becky should have lost, man. Especially the fact that you were going to give the title up anyway next, like in a couple of weeks since you were pregnant.
Yeah, she should have lost that title to Shayna.
I'm telling you, man, if you don't get put over by a 4 horsewoman at WrestleMania, you don't recover.
No. Yeah.
Just think.
No, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, Asuka, I guess, could semi-recover. She obviously won titles. Like, you got to pray your big WrestleMania match against one of them is against Sasha Banks. Because she'll always put you over.
She will do the job.
Death taxes and Sasha losing their title.
But she loses in spectacular. But it's always the right move.
Yeah.
Except when it was against Charlotte. Those are never the right moves. But like Bianca was obviously the right move. Bayley was the right. Like those are always the right move. Shoot, Sasha, that was the best Ronda Rousey match I ever saw. Like her and Sasha at Royal Rumble.
Yeah,
she puts on bangers, man. But you know, we had to get rid of some talent to bring back Eva Marie.
Lana
and Rusev.
That's true, Rusev.
Dude, let's be real. Rusev was a bad dude when he came out at NXT. Him showing up to WrestleMania in the tank.
Yes.
In the tank.
It's crazy too, because at that point you'd be like, man, why did John Cena win? But then you see like the next year, you're like, well, shit.
I was okay. I was super okay with John Cena winning because it's going to bring relevance back to that title.
And it did. There was whole articles there was articles like, damn, WWE doesn't know what to do. The US title means more than the WWE championship.
It needed it. It was a dead title.
Yeah, like when The Miz brought life into the Intercontinental title.
So I guess, guys, what could, besides a miraculous Triple H's trying to buy WWE from behind the scenes, because I feel like that'd be the only real way, what could bring NXT back?
See, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, give Triple H's baby back.
I think that's the only logical thing.
It really is. He was the best outside of the wrestlers. He was the best thing about NXT. Because like every takeover, he would come out and have an introduction and get the crowd hyped.
I don't know what you do besides that. If you can't do that, we're stuck with, no disrespect to him, the Braun Breaker, Mandy Rose era. I mean, Toxic Attraction, they are just whooping everybody's ass, so that's enjoyable. Like, they're the best part of NXT, but no disrespect to them, but it's like, they're the best part, which is like...
not good. I'll say it. It sucks. I got no problem saying it. I will hold no bones back here. I am not a fan of NXT 2.0. I'm not. I don't like it. I can't get behind these wrestlers because they all look like WWE 2K creator wrestlers. They're like, prove me wrong. And anytime they get someone like semi-decent, they let their ass go.
Yeah, they got to stop doing that. Like,
Karrion Kross, he was running shit too.
He was.
I was just because you just thought about Let Go, and I thought about like who was the last chick, like Karrion Kross and Scarlett. Like that intro was wild.
Mm-hmm.
But
and then they went to the main roster and they gave him a stupid mask, and he became Axe and Smash Demolition's little cousin.
Before that, they split him. They split him up.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Scarlett was supposed to debut on SmackDown, but never did.
No, she didn't even get to that point.
Terrible.
I don't know what they could do outside of bringing Triple H back. I get maybe hire better creative. Like, I don't know. They shouldn't have fired William Regal.
That was another yes. War game.
Why would you fire the man?
War, it's WAHHHHHR.
Like, he was the face of NXT for the longest time. Like, everyone respected that man. Like, when he got fired, like, all the tweets from all the wrestlers, like, man, William Regal was like the greatest thing to happen at NXT, or like, it was like bullshit decisions like that is why NXT is the way it is.
And unfortunately, NXT that we knew and loved is our newer version of the Attitude Era. It's never going to come back.
I agree. Yep. I agree.
Yep. Vince McMahon has put too much money now into NXT 2.0 for him to just give that up. Even if Triple H comes back, it ain't really going to matter. Vince isn't going to let go of that baby.
Triple H, I don't even know if he wants to come back. Like, the dude used to tweet about every NXT episode. Every time would be live tweeting during takeovers. He doesn't tweet about it at all.
Which I can't blame him.
Right.
I couldn't either.
I mean, if you take something that you worked on for years and years and years, made it into this absolutely beautiful piece of art, just for it to get shit on with a shitty spray paint color and a bunch of Rick Steiner kids, like, I don't give a shit. It's done. It's dead. It's our it's our newer Attitude Era.
I do like that. I like that.
That's a good analogy.
I'm very poetic, boys.
Well, shoot, we're running up against it, about to hit that hour mark. So anything else about the rise and fall of NXT? Did like taking a break from current news to do these things. These are always fun to do.
Yeah, I like these special episodes that we do every once in a while.
Jacob?
Oh, I don't know. It's sad. And NXT was great. Keyword was. Fortunately, we do have a different WWE option now that's very readily available in AEW. Of course, I'm a little biased, but at least we have that. I don't know. It's sad. It's really sad when you think about it. I have so many good memories with NXT. Just tons.
Yeah, me too. A lot of fantastic matches that, like, we'll go back and watch. Like that Pete Dunne versus Tyler Bates match when Pete Dunne won a championship. Like, that is one of my all-time favorite NXT matches.
I mean, I agree, man. It's just crazy to think about because they, like you said earlier, Byron, they're the ones who ramped you up for a big 4 pay-per-view weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got them on Saturday night to like really pump you up for Sunday, and they were supposed to be the opening act, but they were always the main event.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, yeah, like Jacob said, it's not going to ever go back to the way that it was. It obviously will never just go to like Peacock and be an hour or whatever. There's too much money now that they've spent, like you said, on cable television. So always be there. I think Triple H's involvement's really gone, which is sad, but it is, because now with that Attitude Era thing, because this is probably what people our age felt when it was like changing. I like more of like, because it went to the Ruthless Aggression era, which wasn't too bad at all. Obviously, I mean, we're out here having ladder matches for custody of a child. Like, I will just still never that will be a shout out to the legend Eddie Guerrero, R.I.P. But Lord Jesus, that was crazy. Or Edge going through all these tables and all that. But it's like from someone from the Attitude Era, if they like, man, I remember this, and this. Watching like Dewdrop, Piper, or like Renegal and Dana Brooke. Like if someone from the Attitude Era saw that segment, they'd just be like. So just like when we go on NXT now and see like some of the stuff, we're just like, what the hell? But yeah, man. But thank you everyone for listening to our Rise and Fall of NXT. Let us know what your favorite moments in NXT were. If you're still watching NXT, if you're liking what they're doing, if you're not liking what they're doing, what you think could be changed to bring it back to the glory days, if any. And you can't say Triple H coming back because that's an easy one. And obviously, thanks to Byron and Jacob for talking. We'll be back in a couple of weeks to then give you the wrestling current news. Because since this is an hour, we have not had a chance to get to fully tell you guys about the whole Cody Rhodes thing, like our insight on it and what's going on the road to WrestleMania. With that being said, this is the L7C guys signing out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.